and welcome to another episode of Microsoft Spotlight podcast. We are having a late night session tonight. It's just 11 p.m. where we are for me and Andrew. But today we got a wonderful guest, and we got Miri Rodriguez, who works at Teams as a storyteller. What's the official title, Miri?
That is the official title. I'm a senior storyteller for Future of Work. That's a long title too.
Amazing. If you could just come over to the house every night at my house, tell my kids a couple of stories as well. I know that's not what you do.
I'd be glad to. I don't think I need to tell you stories because you're ready to go to bed. It's so late this time. No story time for you.
Anyway, Andrew, how's it going today? Tonight?
It's all good. Yeah, tonight. Yeah, so it's tonight for us. Yeah, it's all good. So it's always good to get on here and record another episode. So, yeah, Miri, you want to basically start off with your job title, which was obviously quite long, and basically what you actually do at Microsoft.
Yeah, so, as I said to John, I'm a storyteller for Future Work. That's really fancy for just talking about content strategy, building stories, and also creating capacity building to our engineers and our devs within Microsoft Digital, so they can also tell the Microsoft story, how we're digitally transforming, how we're building the future of work, anything related to hybrid work, the employee experience, the customer zero approach that we have in how we build our empathy and encode empathy into our technology and our resources and our services. So a lot to unpack in the space of telling the story in a way that both our technical audiences can see how we deploy, but also our regular audiences, all of Microsoft in general, understands how, the human side of all of this and who's behind all of the technology at Microsoft.
Awesome. So where did it start? Where did your career kind of start?
So ideas. They start with ideas. Our team is called StoryCore. We have a team of storytellers that we have an editorial process, and a lot of people within Microsoft Digital will come to us and say, "Hey, Miri, I have this great story. I have this tool that we created for Azure that we've been trying internally, and it turned out really good. We want to put it out there for other devs to see and maybe even, try it out in their own spaces." So there's anything from that to a Windows 11 event that we just covered. And then so we get together with the product teams, we talk about ideation, and then we align those stories to our themes. How does this apply in how we can find different angles within that story? So for example, Windows 11, we just went through that. We created a content suite along with the product team that involved interviews, how we deployed, lessons learned, the employee experience. So we actually had a very human story about one of our employees that was in their country. They had to tend to their ill father. So a very connected story around how this enabled him to stay connected at Microsoft and productive and engaged with us at Microsoft. So what angles can we find and how we can submit them for actual production? And then we have a production team. We have a studio, and we have different writers, and we have social storytellers. So everybody comes together, and then we own pieces of it. So all of us kind of grab and go.
It's safe to say I'm very confused. I saw
I did not do a good job to explain. It's just a lot of writing and a lot of storytelling. How about that? A lot of telling stories.
Yeah, I would say it's not something that I could personally do myself. So hats off to you, because I wouldn't have a clue where to start and what to do. So.
Well, we actually help people like you if you have something like even if you don't know where to start. If you say, "Hey, Miri, we're considering a story about this one thing," our team can help you just kind of navigate that ideation process where we can say, "Okay, what is your ultimate goal? What is the mission of that story? Who are you trying to talk to, and why? What is the key takeaway? What do you want your audience to walk away with?" My process is, and you asked this, John, to answer that question more succinctly. The creative process starts with a mission. What is that story mission, and what are people going to feel when they connect to your story? So I'm very much about the feel of the story, and I unpack that, and I help people unpack that on their own to be able to articulate how their audiences are going to feel when they come in contact with that content.
So, I mean, obviously you've been at Microsoft for 9 years.
You look so dumbfounded.
You're just sleeping, you're just falling asleep. So this is like, why are we doing this right now? It's 11 o'clock your time.
It's a very interesting career, because it's not something that, personally for myself, that I'm ever going to dive into or basically, go out and start doing myself.
Right.
So it's always interesting to obviously learn about the different parts of Microsoft, because there's so many different spinning wheels and cogs that basically happen within the background. Because obviously, me and John are technical people. All we see is the technical side, but obviously behind that is obviously the back office staff and all the other people that basically do different roles for Microsoft to make them as big and as powerful as they are today.
What I find amazing about it is like I've never heard of like this job being a job before. Like before we kind of like started speaking to you and stuff like that, and it really does show that Microsoft like literally think of everything.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
every little thing you
Unbelievable.
could possibly need, and they get in a expert storyteller. You've written a book about brand storytelling as well. Am I right?
I did.
And
Yeah.
that published last year.
It did, right during COVID, you know, perfect timing.
So like they literally think of everything and the whole journey from like the production to the customer, and I think you're obviously a massive cog in that wheel of being able to deliver products to customers. So like let's go back like through your career, like let's start like think like at the beginning of your career, kind of where did your career start when you left high school or college?
Yeah, you know, what's funny is that, of course, you know, that job didn't exist before, right? You don't go to school to be a storyteller. Actually, you do today. I hear there's actually my book is being used for textbooks at school now, which is incredible to think about, that they're actually teaching this craft in school now as part of communications and marketing curriculums. But, you know, I didn't go to school to be a storyteller. That was not even a job back then. And I actually wanted to be a jet fighter pilot. So, but that didn't turn out for different reasons. So I ended up going to school for communications. And when I came into Microsoft, I had done a few stints in different tech organizations, Motorola, Citrix, just kind of Microsoft partners. Ended up at Microsoft, and I started as a readiness partner for operations. And then I quickly moved over to social media. In social media, I found that there was a disparity at the brand level where our support channels, I was owning the support channels at the time. So if you tweeted at us and, you know, had a complaint about a blue screen, my team was responding to you. So I was in charge of that team. And we were very formal in those channels. We were talking, dear sir, and thank you. And, you know, and then at the brand level, the marketing level, at the product teams, we're having so much fun and saying happy Friday and having all these, you know, the fun with customers. And I'm thinking, these are the same customers. Why are we talking differently? You know, there's a disparity in the story that we're telling. So we did a hackathon around storytelling and unifying the customer voice. And that was at the same time, it was almost serendipitous that, you know, Satya came in, he was already here, but he was talking about empathy. He was talking about his own journey. And he was talking about stories. And there's actually, I think there's 4,000 storytellers now worldwide at Microsoft. There's actually a vacant slot in my team. So if anybody wants to apply, it's a senior storyteller role actually open in my team. So go look up my LinkedIn there.
I can safely say that today. Let's throw that right out there.
I'll tell you what, I'm amazing at reading the Gruffalo. My daughter makes my wife read it, and then the other night she heard me read it. She goes, "I don't read that anywhere near as good."
Oh, that's great. So, you know, so there's so many ways that we can unpack storytelling. And for me in my career, it just organically happened from being in social and then being in the right place at the right time. And then I applied, and I honestly did not think I was going to get this role. Like, absolutely not. And then next thing I know, you know, I'm flying to Seattle and I'm doing this role within digital. I didn't think I was going to get it because I'm not, I'm not an engineer. I'm not techie in that sense. I'm more on the support, you know, the support roles. But yeah, I was in, and I was in it hard, and I was failing for like 3 months because I didn't know how to do it.
But you obviously are not failing. You're not obviously
5 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's that?
I'll say you've been doing your role now for 5 years as a storyteller.
Yeah, so about 6 years now. Yeah.
So you are nowhere near a foul storyteller now.
So then like after a few months after failing, seriously, like I was like, I'm gonna get fired, they're gonna send me back to Florida. I literally told my husband, do not unpack your bags because they're gonna send us back anytime now, you know. And it's like, it's not happening. But you know, like anything, you become it teaches you, right? So what happened in my space is like I was trying to crack this code of understanding techs in their space and devs and engineers and how they consume content that makes them get excited, right? So they don't want to hear from Miri, you know, the marketer. They don't want to hear, like, I'm not their expert. So it was really this idea of empathy. And I used, I was finishing my master's degree, and I was finishing my, you know, my capstone project, which was using design thinking for delivering a product. And I used stories as products. So I was able to map the 5 steps in design thinking. And the stories became successful. You know, they began to land with the audiences. And I thought, oh, there's something, I want something. And that's what, you know, people began to really think about. And that's where the book came out. I mean, next thing I know, I'm traveling the world talking about storytelling. And all of a sudden I'm an expert. And I was like, 2 days ago, I was about to get fired. You know, how does this happen?
So one thing Microsoft are very good at is obviously creating a story around a product or a solution before they actually then tell you what the actual solution is. I mean, you see it at Ignite all the time where obviously Satya will go on stage and basically do this whole long speech and then, okay, what's you have to talk about? Then you go, oh, we're launching this product. Oh, okay, no, it makes sense. But you basically told me about this thing for about 25 minutes and now you're actually getting to the actual product name.
Into the actual product, yes. And we're doing more of that. I mean, definitely you see Panos doing that a lot when he talks about, you know, Windows and how he introduces the new features. And so I think it's more of a new mechanism, a new strategy around how to best, you know, create that storyline and the narrative and then introduce, and don't get right to the point of like, here's our product and here's our features, but really get people excited and emotional about the story.
You didn't put together the Ignite in 2020 when they all sat around the campfire doing the old the mesh stuff, did you?
No.
That was really trippy.
Oh, you guys, you're just that what's in that tea?
This wasn't tea, this is beer.
Okay. You know, it's definitely, I would say, you know, back to the question about my career, I think there's so much space in storytelling to unpack and to explore, and it's so exciting. I feel that you can just go anywhere with this, and I have yet to uncover so many things, and definitely don't consider myself an expert, but someone who's very curious and continues to explore, you know, the space and learn more. I mean, I continue to learn every day, so.
Yeah. And something that kind of really interesting from what you said, you was aspiring jet fighter. Right, yeah, that's crazy. Like just another, like we have like 32 stories so far, and everyone starts from a different kind of beginning, and that's just something completely different. We start calling you Maverick Miri in a minute.
Unbelievable. You know what's funny is I was actually talking about this because I went to school, you know, and for high school I enrolled in this program at JROTC, Air Force ROTC, and I was actually like, I was really good, and I did all the drill meets and I became the corps commander. I was like, I'm on my way to be a jet fighter pilot. Like, this is happening. I could read all the instruments. I did simulations and everything. And so every year we would go to Kennedy Space Center because I live in Florida, and Kennedy Space Center at NASA to just as a field trip. Like, we would just go and like, ooh, nerd out, you know what I mean? And just actually this past week, I was invited to speak on storytelling and diversity in STEM at NASA. So I was actually, I directed a panel, I moderated a panel there, and I'm thinking, how incredible is this entire story of me thinking I'm going to end up at NASA one day, but never as a storyteller, you know what I mean? Like, and here I am. It was insane. It was like that moment, you know? It's really cool.
That's just madness, that is. So I just want to touch obviously a little bit more on your career. Obviously, you was head of the global internship as well.
Yeah, so I was invited because of storytelling. You know, you think about storytelling as also as a culture activator, and I think Satya of all people has really modeled this the best way. He has used stories, his own stories. He continues to connect with us, with employees, with stories, and so he's modeled this very much. And I was invited to join HR. Never, you know, did I think I would end up in HR? I'm not an HR career person at all. And I was invited to join HR and actually lead the intern program and lead students, you know, in using storytelling as a platform for them to actually to bring diversity, inclusion, culture, and drive that. I did that, and it was exciting at the global level. I did that for 2.5 years. Last year, I actually had a diagnosis, a medical diagnosis. So I took a leave, 6 months. And so coming back, I was like, it's a lot to do both HR and do storytelling. So Microsoft being as good as it is, I was like, when I come back, can I just do the storytelling? They're like, yes. I came back to the new role with future work focus. And so I'm not leading the program anymore. But I can tell you that I'm really proud. The program grew, and the program, we enabled a lot of open mic sessions for our students to tell their stories and tell the stories of how they came to Microsoft, what they aspire when they come to Microsoft. And I think that's the most important part, is when people feel part of the story, that you and I feel part of the story, and that brings the loyalty to the brand, to Microsoft. So
what would you say has been like the most difficult thing for you? I mean, like since you've got the job, since you've been bedded in, what's like the most difficult thing in your career so far, would you say?
Yeah, so I would say learning the mechanics when the technology changes, the channel changes, the customer changes so rapidly. So it's almost like when you're almost there, and you're like, okay, I got it. It's like it all changes, and then you have to do it again. And it's this idea of you having to learn that the system, and that's why I think design thinking works for me specifically, and I teach it, because it's this idea that you're always prototyping, and you always have to pivot, and it's never all fully baked. You never have this one thing that's like the magic pill or the silver bullet when it comes to storytelling. And I think that's true in every position. I think all of us are always having to navigate change, and especially now. But when it comes to our customers are, they're demanding, right? They're very demanding. So to be able to deliver something that is significant, I personally, I get very passionate about my work. Like it matters to me a lot. And so, so I may cry a little if somebody doesn't like it. I'm just kidding. It's not that crazy, but I don't want to take it personal, but I do, because I really put a lot of myself in it. And so being able to detach myself, it's hard sometimes, I have to admit.
So being passionate about your job is like something for me and John. We're passionate about technical roles and technical jobs and stuff that we do, and completely understand from that. I mean, I know that when I throw myself into something, I go head first, and that's whether it's in my actual job or doing football team that I run. I literally just immerse myself in what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think there's a magic there. I mean, there's this balance of like not being too attached, but then if you're too detached, then you're not really feeling it, right? John, what were you gonna say?
I was literally going to say exactly the same as what Andrew said.
That's what too much time with Richard. That's what it is now.
I nodded. I was like, yeah, he's just going to say what I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of genius and obsession. I mean, I think if you really love what you do, you just can't help it but really just get immersed in the experience and love it. And I've learned I've learned that of course all the content is not going to land. Not everything's going to be success, but if I can walk out of the project and go, man, I gave it my all, I did my best, then I walk out with a sense of pride that I did what I could, and I did my best. And I think that's the most important part for me. So,
and would you recommend, basically, so for me and John, obviously we go out to customers and obviously do presentations, would you recommend that we basically go and learn how to do storytelling to obviously enable our presentations to be better, have more impact on the audience?
Yeah, so I get this question actually a lot. People ask, hey, how can we really deliver something that is impactful? And I always go back to just the audience. You have to define your audience and understand what motivates them first. And it's simple. It's I'm not saying anything that nobody knows here in the room and is not listening to. It's back to the basics of taking time to assess who your audience is as much as you can, and delineate that. Who are they as a character in your story? How are you bringing them in so they can feel part of that story? If you think about stories that you love, that are consequential to you, are stories that you have watched, you've heard, or you've read, stories that you feel something because you feel the character somewhere. You attach yourself to the character. And so our job is to really do that when we deliver that content or that presentation, or when we talk to our customers. It's about making them feel part of that. It's not us delivering something in a solution always, like here's Microsoft, here's a solution because we're great. but it's more about bringing them into the space and saying, where are you in our story? It's really your story. We are enabling you. I call that the Robin to the Batman effect. They're the heroes in the story. We're the enablers, we empower them to win. If they win, we win. So making them feel that way, that just solves a lot of how we present the story. And then you can dress it up however you want. So take time to assess your customer, where they are in the journey, where they're sitting, how they're feeling. If you know, even ask them, how are you feeling right now? There's a lot of feelings happening, especially in today's world with all the changes that are going on, a lot of human condition to be considered. And so if we come in as humans doing humans instead of business doing business, then we have a better shot at delivering something that is compelling, that they will listen to.
So you've got quite a big social media following, 10,000 on Twitter, like probably more on LinkedIn. Like, how important is like social media to like your job and storytelling in general?
Oh my gosh, I started the journey almost right after I began at Microsoft, at a time when a lot of people at Microsoft did not, right? We didn't even have social media policies because HR did not have to worry, because nobody was on social media. It was like me and somebody else. I think it was just like me and Steve Clayton, and that's it. And so as social media became a little bit more, prolific, and people began to, kind of, blend their personal and professional lives, to me, it served me on so many levels to give me a voice and a platform that I feel like I know I wouldn't have had I not started that process outside of Microsoft. What that did for me is it removed the stigma of like, okay, I'm doing work, and so my job, my boss and my skip level might recognize it, and I can get a nice bonus, and that's my reward. Versus, no, I'm gonna go talk about what I'm doing. I'm gonna go connect with people. I'm gonna talk about my journey and get that recognition outside of that bubble, and make it bigger, and make it a bigger impact. For me, it was especially powerful because I wanted to target young women in tech, and that is my audience today. I really want to enable them. I want them to feel like they have a friend. I didn't when I came in. It was lonely. It was not easy as a woman in tech, as a Latina in tech. So I used the platform to just share my experiences and to say, hey, I'm here. And if you want to write a book, and I could write a book, so you can definitely write a book if I wrote a book. You know what I mean? I was like, so just kind of that representation, enabling young women to say, hey, Miri's there. She looks like me. That's important. And so that has given me so many opportunities. I mean, I've gone to Africa, 4 tours, just on LinkedIn profile. I mean, I've gotten so many opportunities, speaking gigs all over the world, just from people checking me on LinkedIn. And, I never pitched anything. So it has given me a voice outside of Microsoft. And then I've been able to bring that to Microsoft, the learnings and everything. So it's really been a beautiful combination of like all the things that we can in the capacity and the globe, that we serve. It's not just one bubble. So.
And you can tell you're passionate for Microsoft as well. I think if you cut yourself open, you'd probably bleed Microsoft.
All the time. Yeah. Yes, I do. And to me, it's, I'm a fan. I am a fan. I would not work for a company that I don't believe in its values, that don't align to mine. And I truly, truly love Microsoft for the core values that it has. If they align to mine, I talk about that all the time. Why would I be working for somewhere where I don't align to the core values of the brand? So it is important to me. And it's, it's a beautiful, we're not married. Microsoft and I, we're dating each other. It's a long-term arrangement. I think it's been a long time. It's going to be 10 years actually in August. So we're dating, it's a little bit, it's a long-term relationship so far. We like each other.
In 10 years is too long. Whenever you need to propose.
It's what it is.
I have a question for you. So obviously obviously we talk a lot about women in tech, and obviously what we can do to enable more women in tech. From obviously your perspective and your geographical location, what is being done to obviously help get more younger women into tech?
I love that question. Thank you, Andrew. I think what's being done more now, which had not been done before, is that people are asking the question like you are. Thank you for that, because that enables the conversations. I may get a lot of opportunity, but it may not look like that for other people. And that's important to recognize. It's our intersectionality, right? So a woman in tech is one thing, and then a Latina woman in tech is another. A Latina woman, mother in tech is another. So there's like so many layers to who I am, and I'm not just a woman in tech. And so with that perspective, talking about what that looks like and enabling platforms and what does allyship look like is important. So I've been asked that before. People are like, hey, Miri, how can I be a better ally? And I'm like, okay, what do you got? What platform do you got? How can you give it to me? And people have been like, hey, I have this great stage that I speak at. I'm like, give me the stage. And they have. Right. And so that works for me because I'm a speaker. So that might look different for somebody else, and another woman who needs something different or has had other privileges. Right. So a woman in tech could be a white woman who's had different privileges than I have had because I'm Latina. So considering how broad the intersectionality levels are, and considering how little we're doing in this space, I think the conversations we're having are so important and are enabling that awareness, which I think make us better. Just to understand what that looks like for me may look completely different, and it will look completely different for a Black woman in tech, and a white woman in tech, and an Asian woman in tech, and all the different layers that we represent. So the conversations, for me, what is being done in my space is people are asking me, how can I be a better ally? And I love that. I love that people are asking the question. I also recognize I have privilege. I mean, just working at Microsoft, being in the United States, I have privilege. And so how do I enable another woman in tech, especially young women in tech who are starting their careers? And so knowing that, not victimizing myself in this place, placing myself in a place of courage and saying, hey, we're paving the way for other women to come along, and our daughters and our daughters' daughters, making it easier. And I think that conversation it's important to continue to have, and it will not die down until we really reach a place of equality.
So obviously me and John, obviously I've spoken at a conference. We had Donna Sarkar on our panel when we did a whole women in tech conversation.
I love that.
Literally the people in the room, I mean, obviously there was obviously a male and female in the room, and everyone was getting involved in the conversation because, it is such an important thing. It would have been nice to have more people in the room for that particular session, but the people that were involved in the room have gone away and actually doing more to support women in tech, whether they're male or female. So, I mean, just listen to, obviously, when Donna speaks, she's definitely a person when she speaks you listen to, because she knows what she's talking about.
She owns the room.
Ideas. And obviously the thing that she's always using there, like voluntold, you're not volunteering, you're being voluntold to do something.
She voluntold everybody. I love her. She's my sister. She's great. But I think, to your point, Andrew, thank you. I think feeling heard is so important. And so the fact that we're having conversation, that just makes me feel like, wow, that's a big step. That's a big step in this inclusion, and this inclusion idea that we're bringing, that we're talking about. And it just, not just for women in tech, for all the minorities represented. So I'm glad we're having the conversations.
And have you ever felt that you wasn't being listened to while being at Microsoft?
Have I felt, sorry?
Like he wasn't being listened to while being.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, there's obviously times, there's pockets of there's pockets of, how do I say this the best way? There's pockets of people that still are driving a different agenda that is not inclusion. There's pockets of racism that still exist, and those are there, and we can't say they're not. And so I have come in contact with those people, and I have unfortunately experienced discrimination. I have experienced being silenced. I have experienced being ridiculed or making me feel like I don't belong at the table. And it's been those situations where you have to understand that people that at Microsoft that have done that, they don't represent what Microsoft is about. And I have to say, I'm really glad to also know and learn that through the situations. Later on, I learned that, they just don't belong, and they know it, because when they act in this way, they know that they're going against the core values of a company and the things that we represent as a company. So it does come out eventually, I think. it's definitely painful, you know, when you experience these things. It makes you question. But I have learned that, again, we haven't arrived as women, as minorities. And so we're just paving the way, and it's not easy. I usually talk about the girls and my women in tech, and I tell them that we're the Rosa Parks of the digital age. You know, we're just paving the way right now. We can't expect it all to be clean, and you know, we're just getting started in this process, in this journey. So being patient with it and recognizing that at least at the platform level, Microsoft is having the conversations and enabling you know, people to talk about it when it's wrong, when these things are happening.
Yeah, I think people like yourself and who are obviously key like stakeholders within the technology industry, who can go up on stage and speak about their experiences and stuff like that is really important. You can see, like, in the last year, 2 years, the amount of like new MVPs, female MVPs there are, how many more females there are in the community in general, and like you could just like more as more and more females from different backgrounds and stuff join the community and are in these big speaking roles and figureheads and
right.
You know, idols to some people. Like, I think that's where the conversations get really exciting, and it's just conversations that we keep on trying to have through every single episode.
I love it. I'm glad that you're doing that. It's so important. And again, it's having the conversations is the beginning, and there's so much more to be done, but having the conversations enables awareness. And I think that's where it needs, you know, we need to have those conversations. We need to be aware of what's happening, how we're feeling, how we're all feeling, because this affects all of us. It affects all of us. And so how do we navigate something that is so emotionally and socially charged all the time? And, you know, where is it going?
And I think some ignorant people could kind of look at it and go, how does a storyteller at Microsoft, how did they get kind of discriminated? Why would she get discriminated? And obviously it happens. Like,
oh yeah,
people just don't want to kind of face the truth that is out there.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I'll even say, you know, it's not easy today being a white man in, you know, in the U.S. And so there's so many different. There's so much impact to this idea around racism and what's happening, and you know, the systems that exist, and the systemic racism versus what's happening. And so there's so many layers. And I think you know, I believe listening to each other enables us to find our humanity in this entire place, and without, you know, to removing our own biases and having the scores is important. And I think that's also part of, like, I hate when there's censorship, and when we have this cancel culture of, like, you know, we can't speak our truths. We got to listen more to each other. I think that's important. So I appreciate the platform that you're creating and the conversation.
I would add something to that. I think listening with intent is important.
Yeah, you're right. Listening to learn, listening to understand, not just listening. You're right. There's an intention that needs to be had to want to learn, to create that awareness, for sure. You're right.
Sorry. I just think, like, you can always, you see all the time, people just listen and they just go.
I know. It's true. No, you have to want to learn, and you have to get curious. You know, I have a very diverse family. For example, I have Blacks in my family, and you know, I have white people in my family. So there's so many, like, there's a rainbow of people, and listening to everyone, was literally sitting at a table and listening to people's experiences, navigating all of these social injustices that we're seeing and that we're living through, and that humanity has lived through for ages. It's so incredible. I never cease to learn, to understand how it impacts all of us at so many different levels, right? So deep levels, and so we will never know. We will never know that the impact to each of us individually. Collectively, we have the opportunity to teach and be better. This generation needs to get better so we can leave it better for the next generation. So it's a responsibility, I think, that we need to take in this generation, for us to, you know, to move forward, to do better.
Obviously, because you're quite, you know, present in social media and all that kind of stuff. Have you ever come across times where there's been inappropriate comments towards you, your background, that kind of stuff?
All the time. I am surprised that in today's age, people, both men and women, will take that platform, and they will blatantly disrespect at levels that I just cannot understand how someone would do this. I used to get bothered by it. I used to just sit and go, wow, depending on the kind of, comments that were made. I learned that the block and the delete button are my best friends on social media. So I honestly, I use them without any, I created rules of engagement. I am married, and I speak about that as well. I do not share my family on social media. We are very private that way, and they prefer that I don't post a lot about them, but I do say I'm a mom, I'm a wife. And that doesn't stop anybody. It's just people are just disrespectful. But I have rules of engagement. So if one of them is as simple as, if you hey me and you don't know me, hey Miri, who are you? Like, don't start with hey. You don't, hey's for horses. You don't know who I am yet. So I think there's this balance that we need to have, in that I'm very friendly. I do show up, and I want to be open to people. Of course I do. And I want to connect with people. That's what social media is for. But definitely, I've learned to read intent. And of course, there's some blatant disrespect. And so delete and block, I don't even engage. Sometimes I engage just to teach people lessons, especially women that are watching, because sometimes we don't say things and then it stays in the background. So I blast people out sometimes. They're like, oh, you wanna be sassy? Okay, I'm gonna blast you on social media and explain to everybody who you are. Let's just all talk about it now. And so it depends now. I'm just not afraid. I think it's important, and that's part of the conversation we're having. It's so many things happen in the background to so many people, and they go unnoticed, and we don't talk about it, and we don't expose it. And I think it's important to expose these kind of things.
Yeah, fully agree. I mean, there was an occasion recently with my partner. We went to the post office to basically send some stuff back to the sender, because it was basically underwear that didn't fit. And the bloke behind the till actually turned around and goes, I hope it's clean. And my mouth just dropped. Just like, what do you say to that?
Crazy. What does that even mean?
I know, exactly. I mean, obviously people do send. I mean, weird fetishes, but yeah, this was just like, I was like, wow, I've never ever seen it in person, and I was just like, wow. I mean, I literally left the post office and went, I can't believe he said that. And literally, I went back the following day and went, couldn't speak to the manager, because what you said to my partner was just massively, inappropriate.
Yes. Yeah, no, it happens. All kinds of crazies. I think the ones that I've enjoyed the most is I've gotten this twice, not once, just not once, twice. I've gotten people offering to be my baby daddy, my sugar is it sugar daddy, not baby daddy, sugar daddy, not baby daddy, sugar daddy. And I'm not offended at the fact that they think that they could be my sugar daddy. I'm offended at the offer. They'd be like $500 a week. I'm like, do you know how much it would take for you to be my sugar daddy? If you're gonna offer me this job, like, you got to come up with a real good offer here. This is not gonna do it. You're not cutting the deal. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really offended at the offer. Do you really think I'm gonna survive on $500 a week? What planet are you on? That's funny. So
I do blast them. I might listen.
I'm like, really? That's how much you think I'm worth? That sucks. I thought I was a little bit more than that.
I've got a question. So what's a typical day in life of Miri then, outside of Microsoft? Obviously, we've learned about your role as a storyteller, but what do you do outside of Microsoft? Yeah,
my days are different every single day, and I think that's what I love about what I do. It's because every day is different, and I feel like when I did whatever I did last week was like a month ago. So much stuff happens day to day that it's so fluid, and I love it. My days, I'm doing so many things. So I'm doing a lot of workshops lately, because I think people are really interested in learning more about them owning their skill set as storytellers. So I do a lot of that with capacity building, and I love it. I just actually did one for a sales team, and each audience is so different, because their motivation for learning storytelling is so different, right? And like sellers, for example, versus engineers. So I do a few workshops, almost like 3 or 4 times a week. I do stories, so I'm actually working on stories. Right now I'm working on a couple stories on videos where we're actually inventing, so we get to ideate some cool story where we found out that one of I'm giving it away to you guys before it comes out. So look at you. You heard it here first, folks. So there's this customer who actually did a review of one of our like power apps or something on YouTube, and it got a lot of traction. I think it was an app. I want to say it's an app, or it's an Azure service or an app. Anyway, so this got like a whole lot of things happening on the YouTube. And so now we're getting our engineers to review the review, you know, so it's like they're going to get together like, oh, so I'm going to be watching the YouTube review and then talk about it and see what the customer was saying. So we're just trying to ideate, you know, different ways to get people to see our engineers on the back end and expose them and say, you know, how human they are, how they look at their products and how they think about the products. And so ideation of that is happening. So that's part of my day, is really thinking about new ways to tell stories, so we don't repeat and rinse and repeat. I do a lot of writing as well, so I write. I'm a writer, and I do writing outside of Microsoft and inside of Microsoft. So inside Microsoft, obviously, our stories and our blogs. I do some ghost blogging for our executives as well, and I enjoy that. But the writing I do outside of Microsoft is more personal. I do a lot of media writing as well. I have an LLC, a company where I consult with brands about their storytelling. So I do some writing in that space, and I do social media. So I push our content out through my company and different places. So I actually think about social media strategy for our content. So a typical day will be a mix of all of that, and each day will look different because it depends on the stories we're telling, the social media strategies that are going on. So it all looks different every single day. And in between, I try to do my yoga, take a nap if I can, if I'm not traveling, and eat some good food. My husband's a chef, so he cooks delicious, and so I try to eat all the food I can.
Nice. So, with the whole obviously career and obviously the things you've experienced, you know, what is the future for Miri? What are your big plans for the future?
So I have to tell you, and again, you heard it here first. I announced it yesterday on Instagram. I haven't announced it to everyone else yet. I just purchased a brand. I purchased this in September, and I'm opening it next Monday. It's a e-commerce business that started in the UK. It was very successful there. It's a wellness and yoga mindfulness shop with organic accessories and organic clothing. It's all handcrafted, socially sustainable, and organic. And I think I want to focus a little bit on that as I work on my storytelling in Microsoft. I work on my storytelling outside Microsoft. This idea came about while I was recovering from my breast cancer journey. I was bored out of my mind because I wasn't working. I'm like, what am I going to do? I had read all my books. I'm like, what am I doing? So I decided to purchase a business. You know, that's what you do. What you do while you were recovering, Miri? I bought a business. You know what I mean? Launch a business. That's what you do. So I am really, really excited to put a little bit more time on that and see where it goes. What I'm really excited about is that I'm leveraging partners, friends that are navigated with me through the journey. These are life coaches, trauma coaches, and really talking about wellness as a thing. All of us, what it means to feel well, to be happy, be fulfilled. And to me, that came about because I was like, my gosh, where do you go at Microsoft after this? Like, senior storyteller, what's next? You know, that's the same question. Like, where do you go from there? So many places, and it's not one thing. It's not two things. It could be 10 things. And so enabling our capacity to think broader, think big. Donna says we're and people. I'm sure you've heard that from her before. We are this and that and that. So not closing my ideas and my options for the future, but really opening more. And I think this opportunity of my brand is going to enable more conversations with people, more networks. It's really community building, a wellness community building of how we can all feel better and be better and be kinder to one another and have conversations with one another, feel good, you know? And so I'm really excited, and I'm really proud that, you know, we were able to do this, and we'll see where it goes. I'm not in it for the money, but it would be nice if I make money enough that I could just be like, bye, Microsoft. I'm not going to marry you. I married somebody. I married myself. Did I say that out loud?
There you go, John. We need to try and force Microsoft to make it an actual shop Since we've got Donna doing dresses, Iona doing shoes, they've got some wellness stuff as well. Yeah. One-stop shop for everything you ever need in life.
Exactly.
I'm going to see the big ignites, hopefully this year, maybe next year, with your own shops in the corner.
Listen, if you go to the company store and maybe see something really cool, it might be mine, maybe I just become a vendor. Who knows, right?
We're getting quite close to our running time. So, after you wrap it up, so obviously you spoke a little bit about the future. I mean,
yeah.
Going from obviously today, what kind of recommendations would you make for people who want to get into IT, and can people reach out to you if they want to be mentored, have a bit of understanding about the whole storytelling aspect?
Yeah, so the first thing is exactly what I was talking about earlier is don't box yourself into a space and a place and thinking, man, I've been doing this one thing for 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, and now I have to stick to that. You don't. You want to come to IT, it's an entire world, right? It's an entire world of things that you can do within the IT industry. So there's education, there's healthcare, there's everything. There's legal, there's finance. So you can definitely transfer your skills into the industry. That's the first thing. So don't think it just boxes you in if you're not techie per se. You become techie. I had definitely, I'm not an engineer, but to be able to tell the stories that I tell, I have to learn the product. I have to speak the language, and so you learn it. It's a learned skill set. So don't be afraid to try it out and connect with people in the industry and ask the questions. To become a storyteller, it depends on what kind of storytelling you're doing. But again, like any other skill set, I think all of us are talking about enhancing that skill set, becoming one. We all have this innate ability to tell stories. We just have to learn how to do it in the business space to connect with one another. And so it's something that we offer at Microsoft. We offer resources, we offer training. You can definitely, Bing, Google, how to become a storyteller. There's so many today. There's many resources on this space about becoming a storyteller. And if you Google or if you Bing a storyteller at Microsoft, you're gonna get a whole lot of jobs. You're going to get a lot of jobs that people are hiring for storytellers in different verticals. So see what's there, see what qualifications each has, and you're going to be surprised at how many skill sets, because it's a relatively new space, you can transfer into this role. So again, it's a role that's being crafted as you go. I think no storyteller is the same. We all bring different skill sets and different backgrounds, and that's the beauty of it. So try it out. I mean, definitely when I applied, I had no idea I was going to get the job. I was like, oh, I got the job. That's crazy. I was like, okay. So I think you might surprise yourself. It's really putting yourself out there and learning about how your skills can transfer into a new role, a new industry. Just try it out. Try it out and talk to people like us. Find us, find you, John, and Andrew, and me, and just connect with us. We're out there. We're having conversations like these, and be courageous enough to say, hey, I want to try this out. I want to pivot my career. I want to try something new. I think this opportunity. I think COVID, a global pandemic of the sort that we just experienced or are continue to experience, it has waken us up as humans and said, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And if the answer is no, you don't have, I always say, just it's not my saying, but I love to say, if you don't like where you are, move. You're not a tree, so move.
Cool. So yeah, I think we're at the end of the episode now. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you, Miri. Fantastic guest and an amazing story for us and the people listening. So yeah, really good to have you.
Thank you so much. And I know it's late your time, so I appreciate the energy you drove in here.
We tried to bring the energy. We tried.
You did well. You stayed up. I kept you. Listen, if I kept you up, then my audience will be fine. I think we're good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Great conversations. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Take care. Andrew, I'll see you on the next episode.
Yes. Cheers. See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Microsoft Spotlight podcast. Please make sure you hit that like, share and subscribe button to help us promote our message. You can also follow us on Twitter at MSFT Spotlight, and we're also on LinkedIn, the Microsoft Spotlight podcast. And finally, we'd like to tell you a little bit about BitTitan and thank them for sponsoring this podcast.
Remote migrations start here. Let Migration Wiz do the work for you. It's fast, secure, and 100% SaaS, which means you can migrate at any time and from anywhere. Migrate mailboxes, documents, public folders, personal archives, or even Microsoft Teams with just a few clicks. No special training needed and no customer downtime. When the work matters, choose MigrationWiz.